Hello and welcome. His own life could make for a gripping film script, but for more than 30 years he's been focused on creating box office blockbusters that challenge those in authority and society's accepted norms. This week on One on One, meet the multi-Oscar winning director and writer, Oliver Stone. Born to a Jewish father and Roman Catholic mother, he now describes himself closer to Buddhist philosophy, although Oliver Stone harnesses his anger at social injustice to fuel his passion for filmmaking. In spite of his reputation for being short-tempered and curt, he remains highly respected for his incredible body of award-winning work. Stone's first Oscar was for Best Adapted Screenplay for Midnight Express in 1978, a graphically true story of an American caught trying to smuggle drugs in Turkey. He doesn't take on subjects for his movies lightly, and most of his films contain strong social critique, such as his Vietnam War trilogy, starting with the acclaimed and violently hard-hitting 1986 movie Platoon, followed by Born on the 4th of July in 1989, which earned Tom Cruise his first Academy Award nomination for playing the wheelchair-bound, frustrated veteran, and Stone an Oscar for Best Director. To the 1993 Heaven and Earth, critically viewing the war through the eyes of a Vietnamese village girl who suffers extreme hardship. This trilogy reflects Stone's own experiences as a decorated U.S. Vietnam War veteran, a time he looks back on with a certain amount of bitterness. Sharp commentary continues throughout his movies, from Wall Street in 1987, poking a finger at greed in the financial world and the yuppie lifestyle, to the almost surreal violence in the controversial 1994 film Natural Born Killers. The prolific director also turned his eyes towards Latin America, making a film on the long-serving Cuban leader Fidel Castro in 2004, although Alexander, made soon after, was more of a traditional epic production. In 2006, his film World Trade Center, featuring star Nicolas Cage, is based on a true story and presents the heroic side of the emergency services during the 9/11 attack. Over the years, Stone has also focused on the lives of a number of U.S. presidents, from JFK in 1991 to Nixon 4 years later, and the timely W, taking a crack at the controversial George W. Bush and released at the end of 2008 to coincide with the end of his presidency. Into his sixth decade, Oliver Stone certainly hasn't slowed down or lowered his sharp whip. It's good to have a chance to spend some time with you and chat about your work. There's very few people I can talk to who have the kind of incredible body of work that you do. I mean, you've managed to achieve a lot in a fairly short amount of time. And I wonder, a lot of it's centered on sort of contemporary politics and social issues, and it's often controversial. So obviously you don't have any problem with being controversial, I guess.
I'd rather not. I'd rather be more, I don't see controversy. I am interested in my time. I'm living it. You know, Bush has affected my era. I'm a Vietnam soldier, veteran. I went through 3 movies about Vietnam to try to come to terms with it. The country I was hoping would come to terms, and here we go around and we go back again and do another war in Iraq. Same kind of war, same kind of mental state, mindset, so to speak. The George Bush lash out with military aggression, and we did that in Vietnam. We're doing it in Iraq, and we did it, possibly going to do it again in Afghanistan. It doesn't end. It's my life. You know, what do you want me to do? I could make comedies. I'd love to make a comedy that make a lot of money, and I really do. I love comedies, and I love musicals. I try to make Evita, and I do occasionally a fiction movie like a Natural Born Killers or a U-Turn, but I just love to know what's going on in my time. And I'm through movies you can find out, because you talk to a lot of people. Right. We read all these books on Bush. They're hard to come by the way. There was not much information on the administration in 2000. You know, Ron O'Neill, the Secretary-Treasurer, was the first guy to break, and Ron Suskind did a wonderful book on him, Price of Loyalty.
Well, it's been a long haul, gentlemen. Ladies, now, I don't care what happens now, how many damn votes we do or don't get in the UN. So come Monday morning, 10 a.m., I'm giving Saddam and his 2 sons 48 hours to get out of Dodge, okay?
Indeed.
All right. Everybody in agreement then?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. May God bless the troops. May God bless America.
What was your logic in making a film on George W. Bush while he was still in office?
Well, you know, I am older. He's older. It's urgent. I mean, the man had tremendous impact. We don't know the full extent of all the administration. But we know enough now through those 10 books that I sense that there was a secret cabal, a secret government that really took over the government. They didn't brook any debate. They didn't believe the experts. The experts in Iraq and various places, they went ahead with their own plan, which is outlined in the Pact for the New American Century, written in the 1990s by Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Pearl, these guys, which is basically about not allowing any rival to emerge militarily or economically to the United States after the fall of the Soviet Union. Big point. So I think there was a hubris, a sense of we are the dominant power in the world. In 1990s, it dominated the thinking, and it took its most perverse form with the Bush squandering of that power in such a weird place as Iraq, you see, because after 9/11, he had a lot of goodwill around the world, and he theoretically he should have gone after the real terrorists who were really in the border, the border region, and he couldn't do it.
Now, you've worked with some great actors. You've actually made a few great actors. What is it you look for in a performer? What is it? How do you decide who to use?
Movie acting is a combination of the basic charisma of sex and good looks, or whatever it is, and at the same time intelligence. There are very good-looking boys and girls who don't make it as movie actors. There's something. It's a chemistry. Why did Cruise have it? I knew it when I did Born on the 4th of July. Why did Charlie Sheen have it? Well, you feel it. With Josh Brolin, I felt it right away. He's 40 years old. He's perfect. He looks like Bush. Feels like Bush. That doesn't look like Bush. I mean,
he managed to in the movie.
He managed to make you feel like you're in Bush's life. He was 40 years old, for example, and he was at Bush at 40 was a failure. You know that. You remember in the movie, it's very clear that he cannot live up to his father's image. And up until the age of 40, he doesn't make any money either. He's basically a failure in life. And I think that Josh had similar problems as an actor. He was a very good actor, but he just never got the break. So I think that he understands the father and show business, and I think Josh brought a maturity to it. He was really good in the movie. I'm glad you liked him.
Very much. Let me take you back to your roots. You're actually a native New Yorker, born in New York City, just as World War II ended. What do you remember those early years?
Oh boy, New York was the center of the world in many ways. It was the new nascent power. Big, monolithic, raw. I remember as a child, it's not a good place to grow up because it's a big, cold, tough city. And as a child, I had to walk in the streets with a tie and a suit on, or a jacket. I was always a little proper gentleman. There was no real room to run and play. There's no country. There's no normal life. It was all abnormal life. But at the same time, there was a tremendous energy that I absorbed, and pressure, and a cultural curiosity.
And your family was relatively affluent, so that brought its own problems with it too, didn't it, in terms of fitting in?
No, I never quite fit in. My parents had some money, but they didn't. It wasn't inherited money. My father made some money as a Wall Street broker, which I made Wall Street as an homage to him. But they divorced when I was 13, 14.
You were actually away at school at the
15. Time. I was sent to boarding school. So my life, I didn't have a family after 15. It broke up into a trial. And I went to Vietnam young when I was 19. I went to teach, and then I went back as a soldier at 21. So my life is a strange life. I can't recommend it for most people. But
you actually got into Yale University, dropped out after a year, got back in again at another point later on, and dropped out again. Now, when you look back on that, I mean, in spite of all your success, do you ever regret not following that through?
No, I didn't belong at Yale. It wasn't my school. And look at George Bush. He's a result of that class, And it's a shame because he represents the constipation of that mental state where you had to make it. Or not that Bush made it, but there was so much competition at Yale. It's a bit like the English boarding school system. I think it would have driven me bonkers. I don't think it's necessary. It's a system of discipline. I learned discipline, and cruelty, but there's not much love. And that's what I missed the most in my adolescence when I was without family. And in these schools, it was a lack of love. I really learned that later in life. But Yale was not good for me.
What was it that made you pack your bags and go off and decide to teach English in South Vietnam?
I didn't know what I wanted. I know what I didn't want. I didn't like the attitude of my classmates, the Bushes of the world, I suppose. The sort of, there was a sense of entitlement. That was one thing. And the other thing was, there was an indifference to the contemporary affairs. I mean, Vietnam was happening and they were not reacting to it. There was a sense that, I can avoid the war. And I thought that it's wrong. A society should go to war, they should fight the war together. democratic ideal. You know,
You
we
actually
all go.
Yeah, you requested combat duty.
I did.
Which is
I was a McCain type of person at that time in my life, which is why I think I understand some of these guys. I mean, I really thought in terms of mission, sacrifice, heroism, and above all, the communist monolithic threat to the United States. And I really felt we were fighting that in Vietnam.
And you're mentored by Martin Scorsese of all people.
And I happened to get the great luck of walking into a classroom. I think it was the first day, and who's my teacher but Marty? And the class was very talented, you know.
What was it you took away from that, though? Because a lot of people say you don't learn it in the school. It's actually going out there and doing it. I mean, was there some value in going and doing a formal training?
It's a trial and error process. The good thing about film school NYU was making short films at a very low cost, black and white, 16 millimeter, 3, 4 minutes, 2 minutes. Work your way up, you know, to a 5-minute, 10-minute. Learn to walk before you run, you know, that kind of a thing. And Marty would be very critical and stuff like that, and tear your film apart. We'd all have collectives where we tear each other's films apart. And I worked my way up to short films of 15, 20 minutes. And I think the one I did that worked for me was the personal one. When you make it personal, when you use the camera as a personal recording device where it becomes you, that's where the two merge, you and the camera. That was a big moment.
Okay, I've got a few more questions. We're going to take a short break here. We're back with more one-on-one with Oliver Stone in just a moment.